Well, welcome to the Skillwork Forum, where we focus on industry issues, emerging trends, and just challenges surrounding the skilled trades. I'm Brett Elliott, co-founder and CEO at Skillwork. I'm normally joined by my business partner, Tim, but today we're going to switch it up a little bit. I'm joined by kind of our most seasoned client manager. He gets out there more than anybody, Josh Roza, and brought him on because we just recently were able to exhibit down at the IPPE, which is the International Production and Processing Expo, what a lot of people refer to as the largest poultry show in the world. And so we were there, and when you're at those shows for 3+ days, you tend to get to know the other booths around you, and it's usually just small talk. But this time, booth across from us got an interesting business model that kind of we felt like fits kind of in a different way. We're kind of both attacking, similar problems just in different ways. And so Josh got to spend a little more time talking to Mr. David Brown, who I'm going to introduce here in a second, and we're going to spend some time talking about what he does and what his company's all about. So with that, I guess I will introduce David Brown with a company called Factbird, which I spent the first day thinking that had something to do with the poultry show, only to then realize, no, it had nothing to do with poultry. You do work in that space all, but it doesn't have to be just poultry. It works in other plants as well. So you can unpack that for us a minute. But David's the business development manager for Factbird. And so, David, I'm going to kick it over to you. And if you want to give us a little bit of your background, kind of maybe tell us, we don't need to hear about all your childhood or anything like that, but just tell us, kind of what led you to Factbird. And then if you just want to roll right in to kind of maybe explaining what Factbird does and kind of what your business is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Josh. Yeah. David Brown, I'm business development manager for Factbird US. I've been with the company for 2 years now. I'm not going to give you my whole background, especially not my childhood, at least not here, but I've been in sales for over a decade now. Really specialize in tech sales. I'm pretty techie, and I really enjoy tech sales. I enjoy solving those technical problems. So I joined Factbird 2 years ago. I was the second member of the US team. Factbird is actually a Danish company, so the headquarters is in Copenhagen. And we are a break off of another Danish company called Emendo Consulting Group, which is a pretty large lean manufacturing consultancy, also out of Copenhagen. And about 7 years ago, Emendo had a project where, just like all of their other projects, they were hired to come in and optimize the manufacturing process of the plant that was in Denmark. This plant was a very large brewery, very large bottling plant, and they had absolutely no production performance data. They didn't know what their cycle speeds are. They didn't know what the line efficiencies were, when the line stopped, why the line stopped. They had no data whatsoever. So they hired Emendo Consulting Group to come in and help optimize their processes. But Emendo told them immediately that we can't help you if you don't have data. You have no understanding of what's going on the line. We don't have a jumping off point. We don't have a baseline to work off of. So this brewery actually went out, got a bunch of quotes for companies that could come in and retrofit their lines so they could start tracking that performance data. And the quotes were absurd, millions of euros to automate that tracking. So what they asked Emendo Consulting Group to do instead was come up with some sort of prototype. The founder liked the idea, right? He's got all of these lean consultants that he's sending to facilities all over Denmark, just like you guys send, skilled laborers, mechanics all over the US. And these guys would come into facilities and not be able to do their jobs because the manufacturers wouldn't have access to any of that performance data. So our founder liked the idea of the prototype, and he developed a little IoT box that would work with any industrial sensor that his consultants could use to start tracking data from any production line in under 30 minutes. Obviously, the prototype was successful. That specific project at the Danish brewery worked, and then the founder saw an opportunity and started the company. So yeah, we're a break off of a lean consultant tool that we've now developed into a manufacturing intelligence solution that can optimize entire facilities in little to no time whatsoever.
So are you primarily, obviously it's manufacturing, but you're kind of, if the line's running and something's going down the line, it doesn't matter really what it is, I assume. Similar to us, we live in the food space, we live in the, packaging space, really, what we call anything in the consumer product goods space, is probably our sweet spot. So I assume you can pretty much track data in any of those facilities?
That's right. Our claim to fame is any process. If it's a manual assembly process, we can get creative and track it. If you just want to, pull data off of the onboard PLC, the production lines, onboard computer, we can pull data that way. We can use external sensors. We get really creative with it, but you're absolutely right, Brett. We can track the performance of any production process, but I would say our bread and butter is high output. So that bottling plant was perfect. Fast cycle speeds, high output. You're going to come up with, you're going to have a lot of issues on that line, and that line is producing that quickly, and it's going to be more difficult to understand versus a line that's a little slower in a product that takes a little longer to manufacture.
I got one more question. I'm going to kick it over to Josh. You guys can start maybe talking a little bit about kind of the world we live in. We're trying to help Downtime and OEE in a different way, but it really comes back to, knowing what you're trying to fix. What's unique about your solution? Obviously, there's the big guys, that would, come in and say they can, kind of do all this stuff. So what's unique about Factbird's solution?
There's a couple things. A lot of the competition is, going to make these manufacturers stop production. They're going to come in, retrofit their entire line. We can work on the outside, give you the same level of data, the same tracking, but completely on the outside. We have these little IoT boxes that, like I said, can connect to any sensor. So if you want to track analog parameters, temperature, vibration, if you want to count product, a digital sensor, if you want to pull data directly from the PLC, we'll just track 24-volt signals. You don't have to stop production, and you don't need to retrofit the line. We can be completely on the outside. So I think that's pretty unique. There are some competitors that do things similarly. But I feel like those competitors that make the implementation, the actual installation and the tracking of the data easy, typically fumble when it comes to the actual software, the visualization of all that data, the real-time analysis. We do both very well. So it's an inexpensive solution for the industry. It's very, very easy to set up. It's non-intrusive. Like I said, you don't have to stop production, but the software itself analyzes all of that data in real time. Is very intuitive, very, very easy to use. Flexible, customizable. The customer has complete control over all of the data and all of the users. And I think that that's probably the most unique thing about us. The fact that we've been able to get the automation of the tracking and the automation of the analysis right, making it so simple, so easy to use when so much of the competition seems to fumble with these very, very simple things.
Okay. Appreciate that. No, it's helpful. So, all right, Josh, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Yeah. So obviously we got to connect down into Atlanta. And as I sat across from your guys' booth, I'm watching these little Lego guys go across this track nonstop, right? So as I spent time with you, you gave me a kind of a great rundown of everything that you guys do. But I want to get a little bit more granular with specifically downtime. Is there any scenarios that you can share with us, any case studies, and how you talk to your clients about the impact of the downtime and how that moves and what you guys can provide?
Absolutely. That's the most important thing. We track usage of all of our different dashboards, all the functions that we offer, and we found that every single one of our customers is tracking downtime. All of the other functions seem to be superfluous, bells and whistles, maybe specific to their needs, but understanding and tracking when the production line goes down is the most important thing for any manufacturer that's looking to optimize output. And I do have a unique case story. We had this one customer that came in, found the solution themselves, which is the ideal scenario. I didn't have to go out, try and find them and give them a cold call. Found the solution themselves, came to us, knew exactly what their problem was, what they wanted to achieve. And their problem was that the production line would go down for significant periods of time. And they couldn't really understand why. They wanted more of a granular understanding of those long stops. And they installed Factbird and started tracking data. And after 2 months, they realized that the micro stops were actually far more significant than the long stops that they had been focusing on for months. The only reason they even came to us. But we track two sources or two different types of downtime. So we have micro stops, and then we have the actual stop that you have to code. All right, you have to tell the solution what happened. Was it a belt snap? Did you have a jam? And then we just have little micro stops. So if you think about it, if a production line goes down for let's say 5-10 seconds, fairly often, you don't want to have to code that every time you lose that amount of production time. But you do want the solution to track it so that you can add it all up and see how much that affected you at the end, right? That's what we call a micro stop. And yeah, this customer came in, they thought they knew exactly what they needed. They're tracking these long stops, these big issues. And it turned out the little stops are happening so often that they were losing a lot more money with those. So they changed their entire focus, started optimizing, trying to optimize, understand the small stoppages on the line. And they actually increased their output significantly.
I want to jump in. I got one question. I'm curious on downtime. Obviously, you're in these plants, you're tracking it. How revealing, or what you end up showing as actual downtime in facilities, whether it's like you said, a long stop or a micro stop, is it I'm assuming the real data tends to be higher than the way they're tracking it when they're trying to, I spent 30 plus years in the manufacturing space. I owned a food manufacturing company. And I know how we track downtime, and it wasn't very sophisticated back then. And so, I mean, is it typically like, wow, that's a lot more, or it points us to where the downtime is? I mean, what do you experience with that?
Manufacturers think they're far more efficient than they are. Yeah. That OE, overall equipment efficiency metric is pretty interesting. A lot of the customers come in thinking they're 60 to 80% efficient. And after a month of tracking, they'll realize that they might be 30, 40% efficient. What do you mean? How they're actually tracking the downtime? Or?
No, I think that was kind of that was my assumption, was that it when you actually put a tool like you have in place, that the actual data is worse than they think. Like you said, that because
every time.
Yeah. I mean, we're in plants all the time, and the majority of plants, Josh, I would say, would tell you, in that number, they all assume, because they know that's what they're supposed to be, we're somewhere in that 60 to 80, we want to be here. And the reality is you're not even close to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it lines up with the PMs too, right? People,
yep.
Their PMs are getting done when the reality is that they're not. So I think, operating a little bit higher than.
Yep. So no, I kind of assumed that when you start monitoring it, it starts to reveal reality. So,
yeah, single source of truth. Yeah, and it's impossible to ignore at that point, right? Because all this is a language. Machines can't talk. A production line can't tell you what's going on. You throw the numbers in there so you can start understanding. So, yeah, always so much less efficient than they assume.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see.
Yep. As you guys have broadened your footprint into the U.S., what do you guys see as some of the challenges in the industry here that you guys face in the market?
Well, it feels like a saturated market. It feels like, I'll come across a new competitor, a new solution every week. When I first started about 2 years ago, we had McKinsey and Deloitte studies that we referenced that had concluded that about 2/3 of manufacturers were not tracking production data at all. Again, that was about 2 years ago. Now I call around and I feel like it's probably closer to 30%, maybe a third are not tracking. In the last couple of years, right, manufacturers have really started to put a focus on Industry 4.0 initiatives. We all see it. I think that's maybe the biggest challenge, is that it feels like we're up against time. Every single manufacturer is going to start automating performance tracking. Every single one. If you aren't, you're going to. There's no way around it. Every manufacturer is trying to move towards a lights out facility, right? Fully automating every process they can. And I think that's the biggest challenge. There's so many new players. Every single manufacturer is looking at this. How do you stand out? How do you show that you are the best of the best? How do you show that you can do it a little differently and a little better? And I guess that's why I'm on this podcast today, right? But I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge we're facing.
Are you a maintenance technician looking for your next work opportunity? Skillwork is the premier travel staffing agency focused exclusively on finding jobs for skilled labor talent like you. Our employment model combines work plus freedom, helping you find jobs you love in facilities that are spread across the country. Our travel contracts include competitive pay and even allowances for housing and per diem. Skillwork exists to connect skilled workers with companies that need them. And our philosophy and how we run our business is simple: to honor God in all we do, bring respect back to the skilled trades, and positively impact those around us. For more information on how to work for Skillwork, visit skillwork.com or call us at 402-447-7058. Call us today. We'd love to work with you.
Yeah. So what you're seeing is everybody trending to that 4.0, that AI.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And that's where I think we're going. I think it's impossible to avoid. Like I said, that term, lights out manufacturing. I think some people still also call them dark factories, because if you do get to the point where you are able to automate every single process, you don't even need to turn the lights on. The factory is still going to spit out product and you don't even need to turn the lights on. So I think that's where every single manufacturer is headed, is just fully automating every process they can.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's not a term that a lot of people are familiar with. lights out, but it's I know what you're saying. Literally, the lines run. It's just high level of automation, which we say for us in the space that we're in, with providing the skilled talent, that piece, somebody's got to keep that automation running. So for us, it's for some people they hear that and they go, whoa, we're not going to have a job. For what you're doing and what we're doing, we kind of like where things are headed.
Yeah.
What do you see, David, everything we just talked about there, everything you just kind of described. So what's the next big thing? I mean, in your space, in the tracking and the data, I would assume like most tech companies, you're already trying to figure out what 2.0 looks like or 6.0. I don't know where you are in the process, but what's the next big thing, either that Factbird is trying to get done or that you see the industry in the tracking space or whatever you would call it, based on what you're seeing facilities doing, what do you need to be out there with next to kind of stay ahead of it?
I think the next big innovation is going to be insights. So what solutions like ours offer is the automation of the tracking, right? Actually pulling data from any of the processes, and then the automation of the analysis. You got all the numbers, you don't have to do the math. We're just going to spit out that efficiency calculator. That's what we offer now. But what we don't offer is a suggestion for what these operation teams should be doing with this data. We'll tell you how many times the belt snapped and, how much it's affecting your efficiency, but we're not going to tell you how to fix it. We're not going to tell you to focus on the belt versus a jam. I think that's the next step is these solutions are going to, mathematically analyze all of the data and tell you what the next step should be. Here's what you should focus on now. Here's what you should fix first. Here's what you should fix second. I think that's probably the next step. And it's pretty exciting. And I think we're close. The AI that's out there is probably at a level where it can analyze this data. And if it has some understanding in the factory, it can probably provide some pretty interesting insights. So I think it's something we're going to see in the next 5 years, if not less.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. It makes sense. Like you said, it's one thing it's kind of like you said, it's the long stop versus the micro stop. If the data can tell the maintenance manager, put it in priority, this is what's hurting you the most. You fix this first. I mean, it just makes you that much more efficient. So
yeah, and that kind of goes into my next question is, as you and I kind of talked, actually, I think by day 2 down at IPPE, we realized that what you guys are measuring is something that kind of ties into what we supply our clients with, right? Can you kind of draw a connection between, the workforce shortage and the challenges your customers face, and I'm going to tie it back into downtime, how what you're seeing, what your clients are running up against, and how that looks with Skillwork.
Absolutely. I think there's synergy here. I think there's absolutely a tie-in. Something that's hard for us is that the solution is actually so easy to set up. We don't have, skilled workers that we send out to facilities to actually implement this on the production line. We just ship equipment and we just tell them to just go out, throw a sensor here, pull a 24-volt signal from this PLC. We just tell them what to do and then they have to do it themselves. But what I keep running into are projects that I know we can bring a ton of value to, make a huge difference in, but the customer doesn't have a maintenance guy that's familiar with PLC boxes, and they have to wait for the manufacturer of the production line to send out a tech. Oh, the tech lives in another state. He can't be here for a month and a half. It's something I hear all the time, right? But we don't have a team. We don't have anyone going to these facilities and installing them. So we do need our customers to have some sort of maintenance force, some sort of skilled workforce, and actually understand how to be able to set up these sensors and pull data from these PLC boxes. So, I mean, when I met you guys in Atlanta, I think Josh, it was one of the first things I said to you, let me get your card. I keep coming up into this problem where, I know we can do great in this project, but they can't start the project until they actually get someone out in the facility, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I seem to be hearing it more and more. There definitely seems to be a lack of skilled maintenance workers in a lot of these manufacturing facilities.
No, it's great, David. So yeah, we obviously, it's the world we live in, and so we see it all the time. You're out there in the same space. It's kind of similar to, when we talk about this move towards automation, which is 100%, it's going to happen. It has to happen. You are not going to survive as a manufacturer if you just ignore the advancement of automation. But, we actually work with companies, which is, I think, a similar kind of a tie-in to you. We work with companies that are selling the automation. They're going in and designing the automation, or they're selling the equipment, but they get the same thing. The facilities say, well, the problem is we don't have anybody that can work on this once we install it. It's big companies and small companies. It doesn't matter, and it's kind of similar to you. It's great for you and Factbird to go in and identify the issue, but if there's no doctor in the house, nothing's getting fixed.
Yeah. And I think one of our coworkers, she mentioned that a few weeks back, actually down at IPPE, how one of her clients was struggling trying to measure that and find that. I think that's kind of where that conversation came.
Yeah. And I think it's a great tie. Like I said, first is to identify, which is what you guys do. Second is then to have the help to then address it. At that point, now a company or a manufacturer, a facility, kind of the two tied together. Now the OEE probably really is, 75, which is world class, so the guy that tells you it's 80, probably doesn't know OEE. So, but
absolutely.
So, David, anything else you want to share about Factbird or anything before we let you get on with your day?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point that you just made, Brett. I talked about how I think insights are the next step, but we don't have insights. So the maintenance guy has to really understand the facility, the projects, the machines, and then the data that he's analyzing to be able to figure out what the the best course of action is. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you guys provide a service that really ties in with what we're doing and is, impossible to ignore for these manufacturers. If they don't have a doctor in the house, they're not going to be able to fix any of their problems, whether or not they understand it.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, hey, I don't know when this podcast will come out. This may be old news by the time it comes out, but I know Factbird's going to be up at Pack Expo East in Philadelphia, March 18th through 20th. We're going to be there as well. Like I said, if this comes out after that, then sorry we missed you. But if not, we're going to get to run into these guys again, which we're enjoy getting to know them a bit more. So, Josh, anything else before I close us out of here?
Nope, I don't think so. I appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah, thanks, David. So just everybody, I just want to thank you for tuning in today to the Skillwork Forum. We hope this discussion has made a positive impact in some area of your life. And remember, Skillwork exists to connect outstanding skilled workers with companies that need them. So if you find yourself in a need for skilled labor, give us a call, reach us on our website, which is skillwork.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to figure out how to at least identify your downtime and things, then reach out to David at Factbird. We'll link them into all this as it comes out. So, all right, David, we appreciate you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Josh. See you guys in Philly.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, David.